Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You ever stand so still, so silent, that even your heartbeat sounds like a betrayal? That was me, frozen in the hallway, gripping a glass of water I never got to drink. I was just passing by our bedroom, not eavesdropping, not looking for trouble, just heading to the kitchen. And then I heard it. Her voice. Soft. Intimate. Not for me. I don't even want to hug him anymore. She laughed. That cold, breathy chuckle she used to save for her friends when they talked about their husbands like they were chores. My legs locked. My pulse started roaring in my ears. She was on the phone, on our bed, her ankles crossed, swinging lazily in the air, like nothing she said mattered. I don't feel anything when he touches me, she whispered. It's like I tolerate it. You know? It's not exciting. Silence. Then she laughed again, quieter this time. Confessional. Of course I want to. I just need to be careful. He's not stupid. Right there, that's when it all snapped. Not my heart. That came later. No, what snapped was the illusion. The curtain dropped, and I saw it all for what it was. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was the background music. Something she used to like, but now only noticed when it got in the way. I could have stormed in. Could have grabbed her phone and demanded answers. Who was she talking to? How long had this been going on? But I didn't. Instead, I turned around, walked to the kitchen, and set the glass down like it weighed 100 pounds. My hands weren't shaking. My mind was still, crystal clear, because in that moment, I realized the fight was already over. And I hadn't just lost. I'd never even been invited to play. She thought I wouldn't notice. She thought I was just tired, distracted, maybe going through one of those phases where men withdraw for no reason. Perfect. Because she didn't suspect a thing. Not yet. But she would. She said she didn't want to feel my touch anymore. Perfect. Because starting today, she never would. And the best part? I wasn't going to raise my voice. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to disappear, piece by piece, while she was still looking me in the eyes. The first rule of disappearing is simple. Don't make it obvious. You don't change everything overnight. That's emotional. That's noisy. And noise gives them something to push against. No, you do it like smoke leaving a room. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. The morning after I heard her voice through the door, I didn't make her coffee. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't leave a cup on the counter with a sticky note that said, "Don't forget to breathe today." She didn't ask why. She was scrolling again, the screen lighting up her face more than I ever did. At breakfast, she talked about some friend's engagement. I nodded. Didn't ask who. Didn't pretend to care. Later, I left for work without telling her when I'd be back. It's funny how fast they notice the things you stop doing, but never the weight you carried while doing them. That evening, I stayed out later than usual. Not for drinks. Not for revenge. Just air. She texted, "You okay?" I let it sit unread for 40 minutes. Then I replied, "Yeah, just catching up on some things." She was on the couch when I got home. Hair done. A hint of perfume. Candle lit on the table like she was trying to summon a version of us that no longer existed. "You're late," she said. I didn't look at her when I answered. Didn't realize there was a schedule. I walked past her. No kiss. No "how was your day?" Just silence. I heard the hesitation in her breath. The kind people get when they realize they've lost control but can't admit it yet. The next few days, I built routines that didn't include her. Morning runs. Gym after work. Grocery shopping for one. I started using a different coffee mug. One she didn't buy. One with no memories attached. I created a new playlist, nothing romantic. Just sharp, instrumental tracks. No lyrics. No reminders. At night, I turned away from her before the lights went out. I didn't roll over when she shifted. Didn't adjust when she reached for the blanket. I let the distance grow. It was tactical, not vengeful. Because silence, when it's intentional, has weight. And soon, she'd feel every ounce of it. I didn't touch her. Didn't argue. Didn't even flinch when she walked around in that old robe she used to save for us nights. I was polite. Even smiled once. And that's what rattled her most. Because kindness with no attachment is terrifying. It says, "I've already left. You just don't know it yet." She thought I was giving her space. She didn't know I was carving out an exit. An exit she wouldn't see until the door was already closed. And locked. She didn't say anything for the first week. I kept it clean. No cold shoulders. No obvious distance. I was present, but not participating. I answered questions, but never asked any. Ate dinner at the same table, but never lingered. Laughed at nothing. Reacted to nothing. That kind of quiet, it unnerves people. She started testing the waters. One night, she wore lipstick to bed. Crimson. Bold. The same one she hadn't touched since our anniversary 2 years ago. I looked at her briefly, then flipped the light off and turned over. No comment. No compliment. Just quiet. The next morning, she made breakfast. Eggs. Toast. Even fresh orange juice. It used to mean something. I sat down, ate it all, then stood, rinsed the plate, and said a single word. Thanks. That was it. She stared at me like she was waiting for more. A smile. A kiss. Something. But I gave her what she gave me for months, barely enough to notice. By week 2, she started circling me. The way animals do when they sense danger but can't identify the source. I'd catch her watching me from the hallway, listening when I talked on the phone, asking questions she didn't care about the answers to. Who was that? Just someone from work. Vague. Impersonal. Designed to keep her guessing. I started leaving earlier in the mornings. Changed my gym schedule. I switched colognes. Wore the leather jacket she always hated, the one she once said made me look like I was trying too hard. I wasn't trying anymore. I was evolving. She noticed. You've been out a lot lately, she said one evening. I nodded. Yeah. She paused, then asked it carefully. With who? I let the silence stretch before I answered. People. Not names. Not genders. Not details. She didn't press. But I saw it, the first hairline fracture in her confidence. This wasn't just space anymore. This was exposure. She had spent years managing our relationship like a performance. She played the distant, empowered partner, one who could dangle affection when it suited her and retreat when it didn't. But now, I was the one rewriting the script. And I wasn't acting. She started cooking more, tidying up, even put on a playlist one night, the old one we used to listen to during road trips. I muted it halfway through and went upstairs without a word. That night, she slid into bed wearing a silk slip I hadn't seen since before the distance set in. She turned toward me, waited, breathed slow. I stayed on my side. Steady, silent. That moment, when her hand reached for mine under the covers, and I didn't move. That was the shift. Because it wasn't rejection. It was freedom. And for the first time, she was starting to understand the price of her indifference. But the cost? That was just beginning. You can only ignore silence for so long before it becomes the loudest thing in the room. She started talking more. Not deep conversations, surface-level noise, like a radio playing in the background to drown out the obvious. She asked about my meetings, commented on the weather, mentioned a new show she wanted to try. I nodded, smiled once, said, sounds good, but I never followed up. Never sat beside her on the couch. Never asked which episode she was on. I was there, but I wasn't with her. She noticed. One night, I got home late again. She was waiting, not angry, not suspicious, just trying to be casual. I ordered the Thai place you like. The food was on the table. Candles lit. 2 plates. I sat down, ate in silence, then thanked her and did the dishes. She waited for something, maybe a story, a joke, a touch. Instead, I dried my hands, walked past her, and disappeared into the bedroom without closing the door. The next day, she tried another tactic. She dressed up, full makeup, tight jeans, that same perfume she used to wear on our early dates. I came home to her leaning against the kitchen counter like it was staged. I nodded. Hey. Walked to the fridge. Grabbed water. No reaction to the effort. That's when I felt the shift turn to panic. She followed me down the hall later that night. Said she missed how things used to be. That maybe we should go away together soon. Reconnect. I looked at her. Not angry. Not cold. Just unreadable. Then I said, maybe, and walked into the bathroom. The door didn't slam. It clicked shut like the end of a sentence. She stared at it for a while. I know she did. I could hear the pause in her breath, the way her feet didn't move for almost a minute. That night, I heard her crying. Quiet. Controlled. The kind of tears you don't want anyone to hear because you're still pretending you're in control. I didn't get up. I didn't speak. I let her sit in the very silence she built. The next morning, she made my favorite breakfast again. Set the table. Waited. I walked in, poured coffee, and ate standing at the counter. Didn't ask about her sleep. Didn't acknowledge the effort. She sat down across from me. Eyes red, mouth tight. She didn't speak. Neither did I. Because sometimes, the most devastating punishment isn't leaving. It's staying just long enough for them to realize they've already been left. The woman who once held the strings was now pulling at nothing, because I wasn't tangled anymore. I wasn't there to be unraveled. And the stillness? It was no longer hers. It was mine. They always notice the affection first, then the absence. But what truly terrifies them is when they realize they no longer have influence. I kept my tone even, my schedule tighter, my reactions locked. She started probing. Little things at first. Leaving her phone face up, notifications on, pausing by the mirror a second longer. Asking if I still liked her new hairstyle, the one she got months ago but never asked for my opinion on then. I gave her nothing. Not out of malice, but out of clarity. I wasn't trying to make her jealous. I was done with games. I just wanted her to feel the imbalance she'd taken for granted. So I adjusted the finances. Subtly. Stopped covering the joint subscription services she never acknowledged I paid for. Moved a percentage of my salary to a separate account, one she didn't know existed. Canceled the cleaning service. She hadn't used it in weeks, but I knew she'd feel the absence. She did. "Why's the Netflix not working?" she asked from the couch one night. I shrugged, sipping water. "Might want to check the billing." I walked out before she could say more. Later that week, I noticed her digging through the mail. Carefully, casually. Her fingers lingered on an envelope from the bank, the one I'd already redirected most of my deposits from. She didn't ask, but her silence was louder than anything she could have said. She'd spent years constructing this idea of herself as the strong one, the emotionally untouchable one, the woman who gave affection like a reward and took it away without explanation. Now, she was losing grip on a script she'd written without ever imagining I might change the ending. She started texting during the day, not full conversations, just feelers. "How's your morning? Dinner plans? Miss you." I responded, dry, respectful, busy, no plans, all good. She was looking for signs that the door was still open, that the version of me who used to chase, to reassure, to wait, was still somewhere behind my eyes. But I'd buried that version in the quiet. One night, I came home and found her on the porch, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring into nothing like she was trying to remember how it all slipped away. She didn't say anything when I walked past, and I didn't stop. Because when a man stops trying, really stops, it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence, routine, precision. It's not a threat. It's a verdict. She used to hold the power between us like a secret, like she could pull it back whenever she wanted. But now I was the one holding the match. And the whole foundation was getting drier by the day. The silence was starting to echo, not just in the house, but in her eyes. She had built her identity around being needed, desired, in control. But now, every move she made felt rehearsed. Like she was trying to convince herself she still mattered in a story that had already passed her by. She stopped dressing for comfort. Started wearing clothes I hadn't seen in years. Her hair was done daily. Nails perfect. That laugh, the fake, bright one she used on first dates, started making appearances at random moments. I didn't comment. Not because I didn't notice, but because I refused to give her the feedback loop she depended on. She posted more on social media. Photos from brunch with friends. Filtered selfies. Quotes about healing and strength. All curated for an audience that didn't know the truth. That at night, she was curled on the far edge of the bed, waiting for me to acknowledge a version of her I no longer cared to chase. That's when the shift in her behavior turned sharp. She started searching for reasons to argue. Left dishes in the sink she'd normally clean. Slammed a door once when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She wanted to provoke something. Anything. But I gave her nothing. I came home at different times. Took calls outside. Laughed at messages she couldn't read. Not to manipulate. Just to remind her that the world didn't orbit around her anymore. One night, I found her in the kitchen, staring into an open cabinet. She didn't hear me walk in. She whispered to herself, "What is happening?" I turned and left without a sound. She had no map now. No compass. Because the man she thought would always beg, always compromise, always come back, was gone. I started sleeping deeper, breathing easier. My body stopped reacting to her presence. That terrified her more than any fight ever could. Because indifference? That's a language no one teaches you how to respond to. One morning, she made pancakes. The kind she knew I used to love. She set the plate down, quietly proud. I looked at it, looked at her, and then I picked up my keys and walked out without a bite. When I came back hours later, the plate was still there. Cold. Untouched. She didn't ask where I went. Didn't say a word. She just stood at the sink, staring out the window like she was trying to locate a version of us that no longer existed. But the truth? I wasn't lost. I just stopped being hers. And now she was starting to see what happens when a man moves on without moving out. You can only pretend for so long before your reflection stops playing along. That's what happened to her. The effort became too obvious. The little performances cracked under their own weight. And the woman who once walked through the house like a queen now moved like she was trying not to disturb the ghosts of better days. She stopped texting during the day, stopped waiting up at night. Her updates became shorter, her smiles more forced. Because pretending nothing had changed was exhausting. Especially when the change was so quiet, so absolute. It had already rewritten the air between us. She started watching me closely. I could feel it. The way her eyes followed me when I picked up my phone. When I changed my shirt before going out. When I came home smelling like different cologne, sharper, unfamiliar. She never asked questions. She was too scared of the answers. That week, I moved my things out of the shared closet. Not all at once. Just enough to create space. A psychological absence. Once she noticed. She stood in the bedroom doorway one morning, staring at the now empty side. You moving stuff? I didn't turn around. Just said, needed room. She didn't reply. But that night, she folded my laundry and left it on the wrong side of the bed. Like putting it back could fix what she refused to admit had broken. I didn't touch it. Let it sit there. A monument to everything she'd ignored. A few days later, I caught her scrolling through my drawer. Not snooping, just hovering. Looking for something that could prove she still had access. But she didn't. She used to weaponize ambiguity. Now she was drowning in it. And I kept my hands clean. Started waking up before her. Leaving the house without saying where I was going. Answering her attempts at conversation with short, polite fragments. Not cruel. Just detached. She reached for my arm one morning in the kitchen. Light touch. Gentle. I stepped back like it was instinct. That broke something. She blinked once, then forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Turned back to the stove and stirred eggs she wasn't hungry for. I left without eating. Later that night, she set the dinner table for two again. Lit candles. Played our old playlist on low volume. I walked past it like it wasn't there. Because to me, it wasn't. That version of us was buried. And I wasn't digging it back up to soothe her conscience. She wanted freedom. Now she had it. But the thing she didn't understand, the part she couldn't reverse, was this. I didn't leave her. I erased her. And the scariest kind of loss is the one you don't notice until it stops looking back at you. The thing about control is, once you stop feeding it, it starts eating itself. She tried to keep the illusion alive. Kept pretending the silence was temporary. That I was just going through something. That I'd snap out of it if she could just act right long enough. But it wasn't an act on my end. It was design. She started digging, not physically, not openly, but digitally. Subtle questions about receipts. Unusual pauses when the mail came in. I caught her glancing at my laptop when she thought I wasn't watching. She was looking for answers I'd already buried. I had changed every password, every access point. The shared streaming accounts were now solo. The joint bank app showed only what I wanted her to see. The rest? Protected, private, untouchable. I wasn't hiding. I was preparing. I printed copies of every financial document, every utility, every subscription. I noted her login history, took photos of her recent purchases left out in plain sight, not for leverage, but for precision. This wasn't revenge. It was closure, preloaded. By the time she started unraveling, I was already 6 steps ahead. One evening, I came home to her sitting on the floor, boxes around her. Not packing. Sorting. She was holding our wedding album. I walked past it without blinking. She didn't say my name. Didn't ask me to sit down. She knew better now. The days that followed were a slow collapse. Her routine broke down. She stopped trying to cook. Stopped asking where I was going. The wine glasses collected dust. The playlist didn't play again. But she still hoped. That's what they do when they realize they've been erased. They hope for a glitch in your resolve. I gave her none. She saw the gym bag by the door, the new suit jackets she hadn't seen before. The cologne that lingered on my shirts, unfamiliar, deliberate. She wasn't stupid. She just underestimated how quietly a man can disappear when he's already gone. A friend of hers messaged me. One of the ones she used to vent to when I was too quiet or too unavailable. She asked if we were okay. Said my wife seemed off. I thanked her. Told her we were just growing in different directions. She said she was sorry. I wasn't. Because every piece of this? I had chosen. not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. This wasn't punishment. This was an audit. And when the final numbers were tallied, she'd see exactly how much she'd lost and how quietly it happened. You can always tell when someone realizes they're no longer the main character. It happened on a Sunday. Quiet. Unremarkable. The kind of day where everything feels still, and that stillness turns surgical. She sat at the dining table, scrolling her phone like she was waiting for a distraction that never arrived. I walked in from the garage, dust on my hands. I'd spent the morning packing away pieces of myself she hadn't noticed were missing. Old journals, tools, keepsakes from before we were us. She didn't ask what I'd been doing. She just watched. Quiet. Suspicious. By then, the house didn't feel shared anymore. It felt staged. Every gesture of hers had a trace of calculation. Every glance was a plea disguised as politeness. But I knew the truth. She wasn't trying to fix anything. She was trying to rewind the clock to a version of me that no longer existed. She started playing our old photos on the digital frame again. Turned on the soft jazz I used to play Sunday mornings. Baked banana bread, my favorite, years ago. I didn't take a bite. Didn't acknowledge the scent floating through the hallway like a memory begging for attention. Instead, I sat at the counter. Checked my email. Replied to messages from a realtor I'd been speaking to for weeks. She caught the screen reflection in the microwave door. I saw her shoulders stiffen. That evening, I took out the trash. Not just the usual bin, the garage bin too. I emptied old files. Shredded duplicates. Threw away what wasn't essential. She stood by the hallway, barefoot, arms crossed. Are you doing some kind of spring cleaning? I looked at her. Calm. Steady. Something like that. She nodded, but her eyes didn't. She tried one last play that night, a memory lane ambush. She brought out the board game we used to play on stormy nights. The one she once accused me of being too competitive with, back when things still felt light. She set it up. Waited. I walked past it. I brushed my teeth slowly. Folded a shirt. Checked my phone. Slipped into bed without a glance. The game sat untouched on the table. Just like her. When she climbed into bed an hour later, she didn't even try to reach for me. Because by now, she understood. This wasn't distance. It was departure. And the scariest part? I hadn't raised my voice. Hadn't slammed a door. Hadn't uttered a single threat. I had simply removed my presence like a surgeon, precise, bloodless. And tomorrow? I'd be gone. Not with a suitcase, but with a signature. It didn't end with a fight. There was no screaming. No accusations. No teary confrontation in the middle of the kitchen. It ended the same way it all began, quietly. I woke up before sunrise. Showered. Dressed. Packed the last of my things from the spare closet I had converted into my own weeks ago. A single duffel. No fanfare. No drama. She was still asleep when I left the house. Or at least pretending to be. I didn't leave a note. Didn't send a text. She didn't deserve a warning. I drove to the lawyer's office, signed the papers I'd reviewed a dozen times already, and handed them over like they were just another Monday task. Because to me, they were. By the time she called, I was already at the notary. The call rang twice, then stopped. She must have seen the notification. Must have felt that tight pull in her chest, the one you feel when something final has happened, and no one's going to explain it to you. I let it sit. No reply. No answer. Just silence. By late afternoon, she texted, "Can we talk?" I didn't open it. The next one came an hour later. "What's going on?" Then, "Are you okay?" Then nothing. That night, I checked into a short-term rental downtown. Minimalist. Neutral. No reminders. I made dinner for one. Poured myself a drink. Sat on the balcony and listened to a playlist I hadn't touched since before the marriage. Not ours. Mine. She tried again the next day. More texts. A missed call. A message from her sister, vague, polite. I didn't respond. Because silence is only cold to those who relied on noise to stay in control. I wasn't punishing her. I was finishing the story. She had written the first half with apathy, distance, and control. I wrote the second half with precision, restraint, and the kind of calm that makes people realize just how replaceable they made themselves. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. I got a message one morning. Just 4 words. I didn't see this coming. But she did. She just thought I'd never be capable of leaving without making a scene. She expected a man who'd beg, who'd plead, who'd crumble so she could feel powerful one last time. Instead, I gave her nothing. And in that nothing, she heard everything. I didn't block her. Didn't ghost her. I just became unavailable emotionally, physically, spiritually. I didn't disappear. I simply stepped out of reach. And when she finally realized I wasn't coming back, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat in that house alone, surrounded by the echoes of a man who once gave everything until he gave nothing. Because the truth? I wasn't hers to lose. She was mine to let go. And I did. Without a word. Without a goodbye. Just a door that didn't slam, because it never had to. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.